The destiny of the land rests in your hands. The journey will be perilous and may end in certain death. Do you dare accept, or will you flee? The choice is yours. Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. My name is Ken Boyter and today we're taking a look at Willow. Oh yes, this little bad boy is considered a bit of a fantasy classic. It is 29 years old, yes, it's directed by Ron Howard with story by George Lucas. This was released in 1988. It made a modest box office profit. So it, and at the time, so this was after Star Wars. This was 1988. This was after Star Wars, and so science fiction was very much the genre film that would make lots of money. Fantasy was a little bit on its way out, and so a few studios actually were a bit reluctant to make this. But anyway, it got made, and I was interested. I do remember watching this a while back. I don't think I watched it when it came out, but I do remember watching it maybe when I was in my early 20s, and I had a vague feeling it was pretty good. But I don't know. But then Ron Howard, he's made some pretty good films since. So, does it stand up to the test of time? So, just what is Willow all about? What is the setup? Well, the setup is there is a prophecy right at the beginning of the film. There's a prophet that states that a female child with a special birthmark will herald the downfall of the evil sorceress who rules the land. And she is a queen as well. She's Queen I knew I was going to mess this up straight away. Bavmorda. I've written it down so I could get it right. Won't pronounce it right, but that's who she is. Anyway, the evil queen, that's what I'll refer to her from now on, she imprisons all the pregnant women. Why wouldn't you? It's a prophecy. You're going to get overthrown. So you imprison all the pregnant women in her realm to prevent the prophecy coming true. Well, it's still going to come true. So obviously she wants to be in control and find this baby before the baby could get, squirreled away. But there are people that want to help. And the child with the special birthmark is born, but luckily the child is smuggled out of the prison in the time and tested way, which is of course through the dirty laundry basket. There's a little basket, it's dirty clothes, sneak a little baby in there, can get the baby out. Now you imagine this is quite distressful for the mother, but this is how evil the queen is. When the queen discovers that the baby has been smuggled out, she orders the mother to be killed. So we know we are dealing with somebody who is very, very evil and has no regard for human life. So the baby, though, obviously, now discovered has been smuggled out, is hunted down by these sort of wolf-type creatures. And they obviously, I don't know how, but anyway, they seem to know the scent of the baby. But we'll gloss over how they actually know. But anyway, so they sort of manage to hunt down this baby, and they find the person that's got the baby. But luckily, before the wolves can actually get them, they put the baby in a basket and put it downriver. You might have heard that before, that type of thing happening in stories before. So yeah, so the baby goes downriver, manages to find a little nook to rest in, just by chance, I guess. But it is just outside a village of, how do you pronounce this one? Nelwyns, which are in effect dwarfs. They're Nelwyn dwarfs. And the baby comes into the care of Willow don't mind me, my names. Ulfgood. U-F. See, I don't know how you pronounce that. Ulfgood. We'll just call him Willow. And he is a kind farmer, and he's also like an amateur conjurer who one day dreams of being a sorcerer. But when he sees the baby, he's like, oh no, this is going to be, disastrous. We don't know who's it. And he says, look, this looks like this is a human baby that's not part of our culture, not part of our race. We'll just nudge it on down the river. It's none of our business. But luckily for the baby, his kids, Willow's kids, are like, oh, Daddy, can we please keep the baby? Keep the baby. And he says, no, no, no. But his wife comes along. She just picks the baby up. And of course, that's the end of that. They do keep the baby. So his wife, again, I don't know how to pronounce this, Kaya, I think it's Kaya. They fall, and the two children, they fall in love with the baby. It's back in their house. And yeah, they want to keep it. So Willow reluctantly agrees. The next day, there's some sort of big festival that's happening in the village, and lots of things are going on. There's drinking, there's even magic tricks that are taking place. Now he's got this little routine of magic tricks. A few go wrong, so he's a bit dispirited. But then, yes, you've guessed it, that wolf type creature who is, I've got it written down what it's called actually. What's it called? It does have a name, but I can't find it. The wolf manages to track them down, to track the baby down, and he's looking for the baby. But luckily, they manage to squirrel it away again and protect the baby. So Willow just says, right, we can't keep the baby. This is too dangerous for everybody involved. So it's agreed by the council that yes, the baby needs to be returned to the humans. Whoever it is, we don't necessarily care which human. Just take it to humans, and they'll look after it. So it's agreed. But who is going to do this? Well, yeah, Willow is chosen along with a small group of volunteers, and they are to return the baby. So that is the setup. And yeah, you've probably seen a few inspiration, I don't know what the word is. Well, basically you've seen some of that before, haven't you? There's the Moses story, and also Mowgli as well, the boy that's grown up in a different community. Themes, there's lots of themes in this. Now, when I remember watching it in the 20s, I guess I wasn't really paying too much attention, but I don't remember it being packed with so many themes, because I just remember it being quite a fast-paced action adventure. And I didn't realise that it's not just that. It's not just trying to be a big blockbusting film. It has got very nuanced scenes in it, and it has got the scenes breathe enough. So the story does actually come to the fore with the themes. And we touched on it earlier, the prophecy. Prophecy is a theme that obviously is very high in fantasy. It runs in a lot of fantasy novels and fantasy films. And the whole story is because of a prophecy. Now, we don't know who makes the prophecy. That's never said. It just says a prophecy says this. But therefore that got me thinking, well, obviously prophecies in their culture, in that land, are taken very, very seriously. Whereas us now, and I started thinking, yeah, in medieval England, the prophecies were taken very seriously as back then. But why? How have we lost that? And I started thinking, well, if you are an evil sorcerer, or just a sorcerer, and you believe in magic and you can cast magic and you've got proof of magic, it exists, then you would more than likely going to believe in a prophecy. So maybe it could be that not everybody believes in a prophecy, but if you are if you're the ruler of the land and you know that magic exists, then more than likely you will believe that, yeah, prophecies exist and they are actually real, and you do need to take action. So I like the fact that all the chain of events, so if this prophecy never existed, none of this would have happened. The baby would have grown up with the rightful mother, with the biological mother, and had a completely different life. So it's just interesting on one, is there any proof in this prophecy? We don't know, and that's the tricky thing about prophecies, you don't know. But if you believe them, then you try to change them. So I like the theme of prophecy there. It's a good, strong, fancy theme. There's also the theme of family, as you can imagine. We've got a baby that's born and then taken from a mother, which must be horrendous. I can't think really, there's not a lot worse than kids getting taken away from their parents. But she has no choice. She thinks, right, it really is the lesser of two evils. I need to get my baby protected. I need to get my baby away from somebody who wants to do harm to it. So, that's quite an emotional scene, to be honest. I didn't realise that there's quite a lot of emotions that's packed into this film. And then we also have, I guess, the opposite of that scene, which is a happy family. Willow and his family, his loving wife and his loving children, they're very happy together. They've got, they're not totally, like, Willow is a farmer, but he doesn't really want to be a farmer. and he gets a hard time from somebody who kind of wants to take his land. So his life isn't totally idyllic, but he's very happy with his family, and he takes joy and pleasure in being a father and being a husband, and his family life is very strong. And that is, and I felt that, I'm glad they did that, because it was a nice contrast. Because I think if you put too many disturbing scenes in a film without the balance, it can be a bit grim watching it. So I like the fact that there's a nice functioning family that's healthy, and that this is a nice family unit, and this is kind of how good families operate. And then you can also see, because obviously Willow goes off on the quest, the effects of what that has, when it's almost like he feels like destiny has kind of brought him to this point, and he has no choice. And again, he's doing something that he hasn't got a choice. He's kind of reluctant to do it. He never sees himself as like a hero, but he wants to do the right thing, and he feels this is the right thing to do, and he hopes that he'll come back and see his family again. So again, that's quite emotional as well. Trust is another theme that runs through this. There's lots of trust that has to run through. Trust in the family. So trust, if you're a family and your loved one is going away for whatever reason for a long period of time, and there's an element of risk in there, you've got to trust that their decision is the right decision, and you kind of have to trust that they're going to come back, and trust that things will be the same. And they might not be the same, but you've just got to have that trust. There's trust in strangers. There's a nice part where Willow meets a character who, let's say, I don't want to give too much away, but let's say he's a little bit of a rogue, but the way that the story pans out is that he just has to trust him. He doesn't want to, and he fights it, and he kind of knows his instincts are telling him don't trust him, but he sort of has no choice, and then he has to trust this stranger. And his kind of instincts are sort of correct up to a point. So again, is building trust as well. So not just trust given or trust withdrawn, it's I'm actually going to build this relationship with this person to build that trust. There's also trust in yourself. He's thinking, who am I to go on this perilous journey and cross all these obstacles and get over them? Can I really do this? This is an important thing. I've got to protect this baby. Am I up to this? So you've got to have trust in yourself. You also got to have trust in your local community. They trusted him and a small party of people to take this baby, which is a very important task, isn't it? Can't think of many more quests alike, that have to, if it involves humans or people or races or creatures and you're protecting them, that is a very, very, important thing to actually undertake. So you have to have trust in your community that they are going to back you up, that they will try and provide you with the best start or the best support they can. Hence why there's some volunteers that come along as well. There's also belief in your own abilities. As I say, Willow's very reluctant. He doesn't really know, and he's and it's sort of echoed. I quite like the fact that he does conjuring tricks and they go wrong. And so he's like, maybe I'll never be a sorcerer. And he kind of really wants to be a proper magical sorcerer. So you've got to have a belief in your own abilities that will overcome the obstacles put in front of you. And I'm a big believer that life will test you. Yeah, it will certainly test you. There's certainly, really difficult situations you can find yourself in. But I also think that life will give you the right, I don't know, it sounds a bit weird, but the right obstacle at the right time for you to test your own reserves and your own abilities, and you rise to that challenge. Belief in others. You've got to have belief in others, especially if you may, as I said before, you may mistrust them. You kind of got to have belief that they'll overcome maybe years of a certain way of behaving towards other people, and that hopefully you can get through to them, or the situation get through to them, and they will rise, and to the occasion. And you have to sometimes put belief in others that you don't necessarily want to. And you have to believe that, there's that belief that the good in people, as I say, will rise to the top and kind of stand against evil from that point of view. And then we could have the whole debate of good and evil, what is good and what is evil. But I guess it's just standing up for your own beliefs and your own values, isn't it? Protection is another one, as I mentioned before. I've mentioned it quite a lot. Protection of your own family. protection of your beliefs and what you stand for. There's your morals and your values. You know, you've got to protect those because other people might want to corrupt and erode them and persuade you and convince you that your path is the wrong path. So you've got to protect the good in life against evil. And again, you know, it's obviously where you see what good and evil is. Racism. Yeah, racism crops up, and I was quite surprised with this, but throughout the film it's peppered with racist comments from all races. So it's not just one race being racist against another race, because there's quite a few races. There's human dwarfs, there's little brownies, little fairy brownies, there's trolls, and they've each got their ideas of what the other races are like, but they, you know, that kind of gets overcome. So you kind of, you know, you're challenged, the stereotypes are challenged. So I like the fact that that's tackled. It's not done in a heavy-handed way. It's not done in a right, we're making a, you know, a message here, we're going to make a stand, but it's just done in a quite realistic way. There's just insults that can happen. And then it's how you deal with that. It's how you deal with those insults and the racism. So I like that fact that that's tackled, because I don't know, in fantasy, well certainly the fantasy I've read, it's not necessarily tackled. It has been tackled, but I think maybe this needs to be explored a bit more in fantasy. Finding your potential as well. So again, Willow wants to be a sorcerer but doesn't know how, you know, that will happen, or even if it's possible to happen. But he does have wide guidance from a known sorcerer, and then his belief is sort of found, you know, and so maybe it does take someone else from the outside looking in and looking at you, thinking, no, I can see your potential. You just got to keep working at it. You just got to keep growing it. So I guess it is like a little seed, isn't it? When you start a new project, or you start, you know, you might take up a new hobby or something, and you want to grow it, and you get better and better, and as that happens, your potential grows. And I always think that then can develop into other areas of your life, because your confidence grows when you realise your potential is growing. So overall, yes, I did enjoy it. It does stand up. It's very, you know, for the test of time, it's very enjoyable, very engaging. And the one thing I did notice is the pacing is really spot on. It's an action adventure, fantasy, high fantasy, epic, you know, film. And the pacing, yes, it's quick, but within the scenes, I mentioned it before, within the scene, you can actually breathe. It lets you breathe. It lets the actors do their job of portraying characters in a three-dimensional way. And the script allows that as well. The script isn't out of place. The language isn't out of place. It doesn't jar you into the modern, you know, present day when it was made in 1988. It doesn't put any slang in. It actually adheres to a world of its own. And I really like that. So the pacing is spot on. And I think that's one of those really hard things to get right in filmmaking. There is obviously lots of echoes of other films, other stories, or maybe the other way around, because Lord of the Rings is right through this. So the story, George Lucas said that he actually came up with the story in 1972. So obviously he you know, Lord of the Rings had been published before, and it's funny, I just wonder if Peter Jackson had watched Willow. I'm sure he's watched Willow, because there's certain things in this film, I don't want to go through them, I don't want to spoil it, but that I just went, well, okay, that's similar to that in Lord of the Rings, and that's similar to that, or the other way around, you know, because Lord of the Rings, the films came out a lot afterwards. There's also Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and the humour. There's a strong element of humour that runs through it, and it's not overdone, it's not corny, it's pretty funny in places, and it doesn't get in the way of it. And what I really like is the fact that they took the fantasy seriously. Like Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, he said, this is history, we're making a history film, not necessarily a fantasy film. And I think they approach the same philosophy in this, because all the actors take it very seriously. And Jean Marsh, she's amazing as the evil queen. Even Val Kilmer, what's his name? How do you pronounce his name? Kilmer. Kilmer, that's it. I never really rated him as an actor, but he's pretty good in this. This is obviously really early on in his acting career, and he's pretty good. You can tell he's into it. You can tell he's enjoying himself, and he's thrown himself into the fighting, and he plays like this swashbuckling hero, but who's a bit of a rogue. He's the rogue, and he's good. He's engaging and he's enjoyable, and I can see why he was cast in this. He's quite a perfect match for the role that he plays. Warwick Davis, who plays Willow, very, very good. First time he did a lead role. Very good acting. I was surprised actually, because I've not seen too much of his acting, but I just thought I've seen him in Life is Short, which was a really funny Ricky Gervais comedy that he's in, and he's very good in that, but he plays himself. And I thought, oh yeah, I've not really seen him play characters. Obviously he's in Harry Potter and he's very good in that as well. But to actually do a whole film lead role, he could definitely carry the film. He was really good. He was engaging, he was warm, he was sympathetic. I cared for him, I cared that he cared. His very subtle, nuanced performance. I really enjoyed it. As I say, the characters were very well rounded and believable. And yes, you might have the archetype things like the sorcerer and the evil queen, and more cliche stuff. But then that's what fantasy deals in, isn't it? But you have to make those sorcerers individual and make them unique, if you can, to your project, to your film or your book. And they do that. I did believe that all the characters had their own motivations, and they were well rounded and very well acted and very well defined as well. As I say, the acting is solid all the way through. There's a good cast in there, and you could tell they had fun. It looks like they enjoyed the process of making this film. There are lots of fantasy elements in this, which you would obviously expect, being a full-blown fantasy film. There's magical spells, there's transformation, there's prophecies, there's a variety of races and monsters, and the special effects, most of them do still hold out. It's a combination of live, like in-camera special effects when they shoot it, and also a bit of, I don't know if it's CGI, I guess it's the really early days of that. There's some green screen going on. And there's some really cool transformation special effects that apparently was very groundbreaking at the time. And I can see why. And some of it was actually quite scary. I was like, whoa, okay, that's quite grim, that's quite scary. But I think that's also to do with the story and how they've managed to build up the tension and build up, the suspense, and then the scary bits come, the sort of gruesome bits come. And I really enjoyed that. And yes, some of them was a bit clunky. And it'd be interesting to, if a kid saw it now, I think they would enjoy it, because forget special effects and how wonky they are. If you've got a good story, good characters, good script, it carries through. Good dialogue, it carries through. And so the odd special effect that you go, yeah, okay, I don't think that would spoil your enjoyment if you've never seen the film. There's what else was I going to say? Yeah, so overall, really, it's enjoyable, it's engaging. It's nothing overly spectacular or special, but it's a really good, solid fantasy film. And Ron Howard obviously went on to make some really good feature films, very critically acclaimed. And you could tell he just knows how to tell a story. And there's a right amount of humour in there. It's a drama with humour, rather than being a humorous, fancy film where they just, or even if they just don't take it seriously and it's like, oh, that will do. No, they've thought about this. It all makes logical sense. There's the world they've created is very believable, and you kind of want to participate in it. And it does lean very heavily to Lord of the Rings, but there's enough change in there that you kind of go, yeah, okay, this is a good standalone story in itself. So it's definitely a good film. Certainly if you watch it with a family, if you watch it with your kids, it would be great to watch it with kids, just to see their faces, just to see if they really enjoy it, and I'm sure they would. So it's a big thumbs up for me. Willow, yes. And the other thing that slightly surprised me is it's 2 hours long. I kind of thought it was going to be like 90 minutes, but no, back in 1988, a 2 hour long film, I don't know, I think that was a little bit unusual, but it didn't feel like it. They kept the story moving along. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you will check out Willow, and if you do, let us know your comments, especially if you've kind of not seen it in a while, or seen it for the first time, or you see it, you kind of have revisited it, because your perception might change a bit. I mean, I certainly didn't remember half of what was in it, and I didn't realise it was so deep. Anyway, we do have over 400 other episodes, so check that out on our YouTube channel. We've also got a Twitter account, so tweet us. And if you want to get definite notifications of every time we post a episode onto the YouTube, click on the bell symbol. I think that's what you do now. Who knows? They keep changing it. Click on that, and then it rings and you know, fireworks go off. No, that's a lie. I don't know what happens. But you click it and you should get notified every single time we put an episode up. So that's all I've got time for. Remember to keep it unreal, especially if you are about to embark on a perilous journey.